Rebecca Murphy, man, I've got to buy me some of that sad and desperate art. Lol, yeah, something like that. Tom Jones, I could barely sell one piece a year. Should I stop painting? Ugh.
No, Tom.
It's those comments. Those comments.
Don't stop painting. Paint more.
Did you watch the video, Tom? That's it. I'm going on a rant.
Ruffy's Rants.
Hola, you amazing artist. So for the most part, I get comments from you guys, and I love the comments that I get from you guys. So every once in a while, I get a comment that is...
disheartening?
yeah, really disheartening. That's understandable because being an artist is quite possibly one of the most difficult things that you will embark on. It's going to play on your emotions and mess with you in all kinds of ways.
Yeah, you not only have to be creative, but you have to be a good marketer and a good bookkeeper.
What I care about is what goes on in here. If you give up before you even get started, before you even get going, how far are you going to go? So I'm going to talk directly to you, Tom. If you are selling one piece a year, and I don't know how many years you've been selling one piece a year, and that just continues to happen, I would have to ask you, what kind of things are you doing different every year in order to change that? Or are you approaching it the same way every single time? Clea, what would you do if you were selling one piece a year?
I would definitely sign myself up for some shows I'd never done before. If I didn't have an online store, I would open one. And if I did have an online store, I would add more things to it all the time, which is what I do anyway.
Right.
So that I keep growing.
So what's interesting to me is that comic was on the video of what we do when we're not selling any art. And what we pretty much talk about is keeping your mindset in a positive place, trying new things, experimenting with new pieces of art, trying new markets in order to show your work.
Yeah, and one of the biggest points was to create more of your art.
Create more art. I can barely sell one piece of art a year. Should I stop painting? There are two answers to that. Yes. And no.
You decide!
You decide! You stop painting because you give up and you're done and you're like, no, there's no way that I'm ever going to be able to do this. Or you decide to keep painting and you put your all into it and you keep going. I don't want to be mean to anybody, and I understand it's hard and it's very discouraging and it's difficult sometimes to put yourself out there and get the rejection that you get. And if you are selling just one piece a year, that could be really discouraging. I understand that. I absolutely understand that. But I also understand that I spent the majority of my life avoiding putting myself out there because I wasn't selling any art, because I was barely showing my art, because I wasn't really putting myself out there as an artist that sells art. If you're not putting yourself out there, if you're not pushing outside of your comfort zones, if you're not trying new things, if you're not doing things that you've never done before in order to try and show your art out in front of as many people as possible and see if you could sell some work and meet people and do everything that you possibly can, then no. Then at that point, you're probably just going to sell one piece a year, if even that.
Yeah, your experience is directly related to what you're putting into it.
Yeah, and if you allow yourself to get discouraged, to tell yourself that you are a failure before you even really get started, listen, no matter how many times that you get rejected or that you fail or that you are not able to sell some art that you thought that you were going to sell, no matter how many times that happens, it does not mean that you are a failure or that it's time to give up. In fact, the only time that you will be a failure is if you give up. That's the only time. The only way that you could fail at creating an art career is if you give up. If you have some cockamamie time limit in your head of like, well, if I make this work within 6 months, then I'm going to do this, then you're not thinking the way that you should be thinking as an artist, because this is a lifestyle. It is a long-term thing. It's not about getting rich quick or making some quick money. It is about putting the work and effort into it. If you are not selling anything, there are several things that you need to take a look at. You take a look at whether or not you are putting yourself out there enough. How many opportunities are you giving people to buy your work? How much work are you creating? How much of it are you creating because it's what you want to create? How many times are you putting those creations out in front of people?
In the town I grew up in when I was younger, there were no good art festivals, right? So my friends and I got together and we started one.
That's what I'm talking about. You as a creative, you need to think outside of the box. You need to create your own opportunities and not just sit around and wait for the opportunities to come to you. I get asked so many times, where do you find collectors? Where do I find people to buy my art? And it's not about you going out and finding the people to buy your art. It's about you giving those people the opportunity to find you. And the only way to give those people the opportunity to find you is to put yourself out there in as many ways as you possibly can.
Yeah, unfortunately, there's no neighborhood collector store that you can go to and be like, you.
No, there is not.
You
There
will
is
be
not.
my patron. Also, the internet. The internet connects the whole world.
The internet, obviously, I am a big proponent for word of mouth, for getting out in front of people. But if that is something that is really, really outside of your comfort zone, put your foot in by at least getting started on the internet. Show your stuff on social media. Open up an Etsy store or whatever website it is that you decide to open up. Contact people. Show your work to as many people as possible. If you want me to give you some kind of like standard business-minded thing, then I could give you some standard cockamamie business-minded thing. When it comes to showing your work, you have to think about it in the same terms that people do the statistics for business cards. For every 1,000 business cards that you give out, 10% of those people will actually keep, which is how many?
100.
100. And out of those 100 business cards, 10% of those will be interested in your product, which is
10.
10. And out of those 10% of those may buy something, which is
1.
1. So for every 1,000 business cards that you give out, chances are guaranteed you will get 1 sale. I always calculate the same odds in showing my art. Every time I show my art, it is 1 step closer to getting that guaranteed sale.
But Rafi, what if I'm already doing all those things and I'm still not selling more than 1 painting?
Then you got to be honest with yourself. You got to take a look at your artwork. Is your artwork meeting the criteria that you believe it needs to meet?
I was going to say, be able to take a scrutinous look at your work and what you're doing.
What tactics you are taking to put your stuff out there, take a look at it all and see if you're just following the same pattern over and over and over. Because if you're getting the same results every year, then chances are that you're not changing anything up.
Yeah, and if you're having trouble figuring it out, ask a friend or a peer that you respect. A good friend or a good peer, not a jerk friend who's just going to be like, well, it's because you suck. Ask somebody who respects you and you respect them to give you an honest critique. Are your prices too high? Are they too low? Do you need to improve upon your work? Are you lazy?
One thing that I know about a lot of artists that get out there, when they first get out there, they have this idea of what pricing is in the art world. They price their pieces outside of the market that they're in, and they don't have a variance on prices. Somebody that has no reputation, no name, no resume behind their art goes out there and puts exorbitant prices on their art because they see the art stock market and all these big prices for artwork, and they end up not selling anything because nobody knows who they are. And then they get discouraged by it. If you're not selling art, you need to reevaluate a few things. A, you reevaluate the quality of the pieces. Are they good enough? In your mind, are they good enough? Are they really actually good enough? Be completely honest with yourself about the quality of the work. Are you practicing your craft? Are you creating the work because you are trying to say something or you want to see something come alive? Or are you simply creating work because you figure the more work you create, the more you're going to sell? And that's another thing you have to ask yourself too. Are you out there engaging with people, showing your work to people, or are you just not taking part in those kind of things. I always tell artists, you could set up at any market, but if you set up your booth and you walk away and you go sit in your car, you're not going to sell much art.
And conversely, if you spend the whole day up people's buttholes, they probably won't like that either.
Yeah. If you're on top of people like, buy my art. Because this is such a varied subject and it has a lot more to do with your emotional state and where you're at, whether or not you're giving in to giving up, or if you're going to decide to just keep going. This has a lot to do with what can make or break an artist. Don't ever think that any situation or circumstance is outside of your control. You get to decide whether or not you're going to keep going and whether or not you're going to change your tactic, whether or not you're going to push outside of your comfort zone, whether or not you're going to keep trying and try until you've got nothing left to give. And even after you have nothing left to give, I guarantee you that you still have much more to give.
And I think above all else, have a good time.
Yeah.
Because if you go out there and your art's really good, but you're a grouch, nobody's going to want that either.
So Tom, you're asking me a question that I can't answer. Because the answer is, yeah, go ahead and give up. If that's what you want to do, give up. If you want to keep going, if you want to make a career out of it, then keep going, make a career out of it. Change it up a little bit, man. If you're barely selling one piece a year, then you got to take a look at what your tactic is and change that up. If it's not working for you, don't keep doing the same thing that's not working for you. Change it up.
Now, I know that you get kind of revved up when people are like, I don't know. I just don't know, Rafi.
I do have a difficult time with that. And I think the reason that I have a difficult time with that is because I spent years making up all kinds of excuses to feel sorry for myself. And I just wasn't able to do what I wanted to do because of all those excuses. I just spent a long time, a big part of my life, just not doing things that I wanted to do because it was like, oh, it's never going to work out for me. And it's interesting because a lot of comments that I get on here that are negative comments come from people that would have been like me. All right, and to close it off, Tom, you're awesome. I personally would tell you, no, dude, don't stop painting. Keep painting. Paint even more. Like I've said in other videos, if I could do this, anybody can. You just got to change it up. Change it up, man. And that's it. And thank you so much, you guys, for all the amazing comments and everything. We are getting a lot of comments, but we are still reading all the comments. But if we don't respond, don't feel bad. It doesn't mean that we didn't read the comment. Either way, if you want to leave a comment on this video, go ahead and leave it in the comment section below. And thank you so much for watching, you guys. You guys are absolutely amazing. I totally adore you. If you like this video, which not all our videos are rants like this, but if you like this video, you could click right here to subscribe. And that's it. Say goodbye, Clee.
Good day.
Adios.